They lied to us. For years, we were told folic acid was essential, especially for women, so we took it in our multivitamins, our prenatals, and even our breakfast cereals. But nobody told us the truth. Folic acid isn't the same as natural folate. And for some of us, especially if you have certain gene mutations like MTHFR, folic acid can actually build up and cause harm. Today, we're reacting to a video from Dr. Berg where he breaks down the difference between folic acid and folate. I'll be adding my own story, the DNA-based science behind it, and what this means for you, especially if you've ever felt worse after taking a healthy supplement. Let's go ahead and get started.
Let's talk about the difference between folic acid of vitamin. Let's talk about the difference between folic acid. I'm talking about the synthetic version of vitamin B9 as well as folate, the natural version. Are they the same? So many women, when they're pregnant, they start taking a prenatal that is just loaded up with this synthetic folic acid, and there's a lot of data to show that that can help prevent things like neural tube defects, which is then.
And I know people who take the prenatal because they've been told to do it because it's got the folic acid in it. And I've had to start educating these women. This may not be the best option for you. Let's look at your methylation genes and check out to make sure everything's fine.
Then incomplete closure of the spinal column. And so it's true, it does do that. But with more and more people recognizing that they may have a mutation with a certain gene that relates to B9, I think we should talk about it. There's a very common problem with a gene that is called MTHFR. It involves an enzyme in converting folic acid into the active form so your body can use it. So if you have a problem with this gene, your ability to get this active form of B9 is greatly inhibited. And if you end up taking the synthetic version, what's called folic acid, you can have a lot of problems because it can accumulate as unmetabolized folic acid. Now, it probably is not going to become a problem unless you take large amounts, but the fact that if you have this mutation, you're going to be deficient. So there's this delicate balance of getting just the right amount of this B9. Because here's the thing, B9 actually does a lot of things. It protects against the initiation of cancer because B9 helps to protect the DNA against problems with the code. If
This
it's
is
the right
so
amount of
good.
B9, it can protect this damage within the DNA that can potentially then lead to cancer. B9 also is involved in the initiation of new cancer cells. That sounds like it's kind of conflicting. On one hand, it prevents the initiation of new cancer cells, but on the other hand, it can actually help grow these cancer cells. But based on the data that I read, it's really when you have way too much of this folic acid. So this complicates things because with this mutation.
Wait a minute. Way too much folic acid or folate? That's interesting. So what if you have too much folic acid because you're taking folic acid and your body can't use it correctly due to this gene mutation? This could be a serious problem. And this is also what I had been looking into. I've got multiple mutations in my methylation genes, and it can actually lead to cancer if you're not ensuring that these genes are getting the proper support.
You need more than you normally should have, yet you don't want to get too much. So the solution to this problem is to take a type of B9 that doesn't have to be converted. It doesn't require this enzyme. So in other words, this mutation is a no issue. Why? Because it's ready to be used and can be easily absorbed in the body. And that is called methylfolate. And there's other long names for it, but basically it's a type of B9 that's easily absorbed and it doesn't require these other enzyme reactions like the synthetic folic acid. Now, sometimes you'll hear reports.
And that is important when you're looking at buying vitamin B9. A lot of companies now show this is methylfolate, or they'll show the different types of it. You can just look up. It should still include on the supplement list if you're looking at the nutrition that it's methylfolate. And when you're looking at food and it says it's got vitamin B9, you'll want to make sure that it's not folic acid. A lot of processed foods that have vitamins added into it, they use folic acid because it's cheap. And it's not the same, and you don't want a bunch of excess folic acid stored up in your body because your body doesn't know how to use it.
Studies that show that regardless of this mutation, you still need to take this synthetic folic acid to prevent neural tube defects because there is no studies comparing this synthetic folic acid to this methylfolate. And that's true. And they're not going to do studies because to do that on humans, right, it's too dangerous. It's too unethical. So it's not going to be done.
Right.
So you're just going to have to use common sense. Even if you compare these two versions of B9, it's going to be more effective for you to get enough B9 in your blood using the methylfolate version. The other thing is if you have this mutation, there's some studies to show that if you're taking way too much synthetic folic acid or the mother's taking way too much, that can increase the risk of autism by a factor of 17x. And the synthetic folic acid cannot fix this mutated gene. In fact, it can.
Hold up. I didn't even know this, people. If the mom is taking the synthetic form of B9, it has shown increased risk of autism in the baby because the baby's still developing in her womb. Guys, that is crazy to know. Wow. Let's keep going.
Block the natural version of folate and potentially increase your risk of getting cancer. So that being said, the question is, how do I make sure I'm not getting too much of this synthetic version? Well, unfortunately, it's put in our food supply. It's as part of the fortification for all cereals that kids eat, also adults. It's used in all the breads, the pasta, the cereal, the crackers, the biscuits, the energy drinks, a lot of the synthetic vitamins, as well as fortified nutritional yeast. That's why I always recommend.
I learned that the hard way.
Even more importantly is to start to consume the foods that are high in this natural B9, which is consuming more dark, leafy green vegetables. The last point I want to bring up is that if a person has this genetic problem and they're
you can also get it in meat as well. Your body can use those because your body knows how to naturally use real food, not highly processed foods like cereal that are fortified with synthetic B9. But the natural foods, like what he mentioned with the dark leafy green vegetables, you can get some of it from beef meat, but try to stay away from that folic acid.
They're taking a lot of folic acid to prevent, let's say, anemia or some other problem. What can happen is they can end up camouflaging B12 deficiency because B9 and B12 work together. And that can create problems with an increase of something else that I want to just summarize very simply. It's called homocysteine. Homocysteine is a bad compound that can increase your risk of getting heart attacks and strokes. And homocysteine also affects the inside of the artery, the endothelial tissue. It inhibits this nitric oxide that then can cause you to have high blood pressure and create all sorts of problems. But it's not just a problem inside your heart. It can affect other areas as well. Because if there's a diminished nitric oxide, you can end up with erectile dysfunction. Now, since we're on this topic, if you have not seen my video on B12, that would be the next video to watch. Check it out.
Wow. So the other thing that got me started on this journey with the MTHFR stuff, learning about the vitamin B9, is that in my family, we have a history of stroke and other heart problems. And so making sure that I'm getting the right amount of the right stuff in my nutrition is extremely important. Making sure I'm getting the right amount of exercise and the right types of exercise has been very important. And I'm telling you, people like Berg, so knowledgeable and have helped me so much with this journey of becoming healthier and learning all of these things. So if you haven't already, you should check out his other video about the vitamin B12. He knows a lot about these nutrients. And let me know what you think. Do you have the MTHFR gene? And what have you been doing to, not do you have the MTHFR gene? Everybody has that. If you don't have it, there's a major problem. But if you have the gene mutation, maybe you need to look into making sure you're getting the right nutrition in your diet or through supplements. And let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.